Well, election time. It's, I voted early on Monday when it was raining cats and dogs. I said, there's not going to be any here, I know it. And I was the first one in line. It was great. So make sure you take, I think it's through November 4th, early voting. Well, we got a great Bible study here today, but first, I won't say who these came from, because she doesn't want me to tell you. But these are actual letters written to certain government agencies, and they're verbatim. Number one, I am glad to report that my husband, who was reported missing, is actually dead. I'm very much annoyed that you have branded my boy as illiterate. This is a dirty lie. I was married to his father a week before he was born. I am forwarding my marriage certificate and my 3 children, one of which was a mistake, as you can see. Dear sirs, unless I get my husband's money pretty soon, I'll be forced to lead an immortal lifestyle. Please stop my financial assistance, as I just got a job begging in October. And finally, an elderly man, Byron, checks into a hotel for the very first time in his life, first time ever. And he calls the front desk to tell them there's no way out of his room. And she said, sir, just check the door. And Byron, well, there's one door to the bathroom, and there's one door to the closet, but the third one says, do not disturb. I could just see that. Well, if you take your outline, we're getting towards the end of 2 Samuel. David's getting up in years. His son was killed by Joab and his troops. But what we learn, Hushai was a wise and loyal friend to King David. The scriptures say there's a friend who sticks closer than a brother or a son. And God is still protecting his anointed one. David is aged, but an excellent commander and leader. Wisdom comes in our latter years, and we can all vouch for that. Absalom's sin of pride and rebellion are thoroughly punished. There are 12 proverbs in the book of Proverbs that warn children about rebelling against godly parents. But David still loves that boy. And he grieves for him because he knows that that boy was a rebellion and probably not going to heaven, not going to be saved. David felt like he would never see him again. And then page 2, pray for the nation. These are, as the Apostle Paul told Timothy, these are perilous times we live in. You got guys spreading nails, and you got a guy busts into the speaker's house and beats her husband with a hammer. Just weird things are happening. And that's one of the reasons I hate Halloween. I just don't like it. I used to, as a kid, loved it. I used to eat candy where I would get cavities on a regular basis. Last year, Debbie gave me the business about this. I I turned off the lights and put a sign on the front door that said COVID. and nobody rang the bell. So that's one suggestion. And we're praying for the state of California. And I put in parentheses, the land of fruits and nuts. And what a great state it used to be. I mean, think about it. Ronald Reagan was a governor. And now they got this Gavin Newsom, who probably will run for president. And Beto will probably be his vice president. You know that. But look at all the D's, which stand for disaster in California.
42 Democrats and 11
Republicans. Yeah. So there's a lot. That's why they're all moving to Plano. I hope it didn't change this election at all. And then the scripture, Psalm 48, David says, I delight to do your will, O God, and your law is within my heart. And then chapter 19, Absalom's been killed, the rebellion put down. David mourns for his dead son and wished that he could trade his life for his son's life. He would be willing to give his life for that boy. Is there anyone in your life that you'd be willing to trade out with? I think there is, in probably most people's lives. And it's a perfect picture of God shows his amazing love for us by trading his only son's life for our redemption. And so, chapter 19, and Joab, the tough guy, commander of the army, was told, behold, the king is just weeping and mourning for Absalom. So that great victory we had is tarnished. And it's turned to mourning in the whole city of Jerusalem. And it says the king is grieved for his son. And the people kind of snuck back. It wasn't a triumphal entry. But the king covered his face, and the king cried out with a loud voice, "O my son, Absalom, Absalom, my son, my son." So Joab's going to come straighten out David. Now, Joab is David's nephew, and he's a tough guy. And he doesn't take anything from anybody. And he comes into the house, and he said, "Listen, Uncle, King David, today you've disgraced all your servants who saved your life and the lives of your sons, your daughters, your wives, your concubines. It seems like you love the enemy and hate your friend." So he's giving it to him. And I bet you would declare that today, if Absalom had lived and all of us had died, you'd be very pleased. You'd be very happy. Now therefore, arise and go congratulate your servants. For I swear, I'm telling you, if you don't go out, no one's going to follow you anymore. And it'll be worse for you than any of the evil that's befallen you since the day you were born. And he's in his 70s now. So the king rises and he goes and sits in the gate where he can be seen and talk to the people and do some judging. But Joab's confronting him woke David up. He woke him up. And so we all need an accountability person in our life that's willing. I've got one sitting right back there. That when you screw up, they'll tell you because they love you. So David returns to Jerusalem. He's coming back to a nation that's still divided. And all the people were in a dispute throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, the king saved us from the hands of the Philistines. And now but he took off and fled because of Absalom. But Absalom, whom we anointed, is dead. Who do we follow? It's a nation divided, kind of like the good old U.S. of A. So King David sent to the high priest, Zadok and Abiathar, and he said, hey, talk to the head guys here, the elders of Judah. Why are you the last to bring me back? See, there were people that wanted David to come back and others that didn't. But since the words of all Israel have come to the king, now Israel is the northern kingdom. It's comprised of 10 tribes. And he said, why are you the last to bring back the king? Let's all join in one accord and bring back the king. And then say to Amasa. Amasa is another nephew of his sister, and they have put him in charge of the army instead of Joab. So David's got to deal with this. And he says to Amasa, are you not part of my family, bone of my flesh? God do to me and more also, if you are not commander of the army instead of Joab. I'm going to demote Joab, and I'm going to keep you as the commander of all the troops. Now, the reason I think he did this, he probably found out that Joab killed his son, Absalom, but I think he also had a motive to unite all the tribes, because Joab wasn't that popular. He's killed a lot of people. So he swayed the hearts of the men of Judah, just as the heart of one man, that they sent this word to the king, return, please, all of your family, all your servants, come back to Jerusalem. Then the king returned and came to the Jordan, and the tribe of Judah came to Gilgal to meet him and escort him across the river Jordan to come back to Jerusalem. They wanted credit for bringing the king back. And Shimei, remember this guy last week? He cursed David up and down because he was of the tribe of Saul, Saul's family, and he thought David was a bloodthirsty guy. And he come and hurried down. So he comes to meet the king. And there's 1,000 men of Benjamin with him. Benjamin and Judah were very close. And he came down, and Ziba, who swindled Mephibosheth out of his property, he came with his whole house and 15 sons. He was a very busy man, and 20 servants, and they went over the Jordan before the king. So they're leading the victory parade back into the city. David's returning. He even had a ferry boat, went across to carry all his goods, so he's coming back, lock, stock, and barrel. And then David shows mercy to Shimei, because everyone wanted to kill him for what he said, and threw stones at David, cursed him, and David said no. So he comes to apologize, and he says, please do not let my Lord impute iniquity to me, or remember what I did wrong. I was wrong. I confessed it the day you left Jerusalem, and the king, please take it to heart, for I, your servants, know that I have sinned. So David now is listening. He's got a forgiving spirit somewhat. Therefore, here I am. I'm first to come to the house of Joseph, to go down and meet the Lord the king. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, who is David's sister, so this is his other nephew, he said, hey, should we not kill Shimei for what he said to you, the Lord's anointed? And David said, don't bother me with this. You sons of my sister, you should be adversaries to me today. Don't ruin this day. Shall any man be put to death today in Israel? For do you not know that today I'm confirmed by God, by the people, as king of Israel? Therefore the king said to Shimei, you shall not die. But he should have had another sentence there, by me. Okay? Because what's going to happen in the future that we'll study, he tasks Solomon to kill this guy. He tasked him on his deathbed, David's own deathbed, to have Solomon get revenge. But he didn't want to do it that day. And then David and Mephibosheth meet. They have the toughest names in the Bible. Now Mephibosheth, the son of Saul, came down to see the king. Remember, they were like a father and son. This is Jonathan's son. And he hadn't cared for his lame feet, trimmed, washed, since the king left. He was sick. He was grieving that David left. But his servant deceived him. So the king departed and returned in peace. And when he come to Jerusalem, he said, hey, you were like a son to me. Why didn't you leave with me, Mephibosheth? And he said, my lord, my servant deceived me. This servant was supposed to drive a mule down to tell David that Mephibosheth couldn't come because he was lame. So he said, I'll saddle a donkey for myself that I may ride and go to the king because you're lame. And he has slandered me to you, saying that I was going to try and regain my father's kingdom. But the Lord, you, David, are like an angel of God to me. Therefore, do what is good in your eyes. For all my father's house were like dead men before you. But you set your servant to let me have dinner with you every night. Therefore, what right do I have to complain? So the king said, listen, let's drop it. You and Ziba divide everything. And Mephibosheth said to the king, he's a very unselfish person. He said, rather let him have it all. I don't care. Inasmuch as my lord the king has come back in peace to his own house, I'm just happy that you're back. And then David's going to show kindness to this older man that fed his troops when he was fighting. Barzillai the Gileadite came down and went across the Jordan with the king to escort him. He wanted to say, bye, thank you very much. Now he is aged. He's only 80. But in those days, that's a lot of miles on a person. I'm 70, and I feel like I'm 80. And he had provided the king with supplies, for he was very rich. He was very generous to David. And the king said, hey, come on home with me. I'll provide for you, and you stay with me in Jerusalem. But Barzillai said, hey, I don't have much longer to go. I can't taste anything. I can't smell anything. I can't hear. I can't hear voices. I'm going deaf. Why should I be a burden to you? This is a great guy. And I'll go with you a little way, but you don't have to repay me. Just let me go back home, and I'll die a happy old man just to see you come back as king. But I'll send my best guy with you, and you do what you want with him. We'll send him with you. And the king answered, Shimon shall come with me, and I'll do for him what seems good. Now, whatever you request, I'll do. And the people went over the Jordan, and the king crossed over, and he kissed him and blessed him, and he went back home to his place. But they're still arguing about who should be king. You know, it's a power struggle. And the king went to Gilgal, and all the people of Judah escorted the king, and half the people of the other troops, or tribes. And just then, all the men of Israel came to the king and said, hey, why have our brothers, the men of Judah, getting all the credit for bringing you back here? His household and the men to cross the Jordan. So all the men of Judah answered the men of Israel, hey, David's from our tribe. He is from the tribe of Judah. That's why Jesus, a descendant of David, is the Lion of Judah. He is a descendant directly of David. And he said he's a close relative of ours. Why are you upset about this? Well, he didn't show us any favoritism. And the men of Israel answered the men of Judah, hey, look, we've got 10 sheriffs. We've got 10 tribes in our northern kingdom that should have more control over the king, should have more right to David than you. So why do you give us trouble and not advise us about first bringing back the king? Well, the people of Judah wanted the credit. But the words of the men of Judah were fiercer than the words of the men of Israel. So they had some pretty good debaters and orators that kind of calm things down, and David's coming back. But there's still another rebellion brewing. And it happened there was a rebel by the name of Sheba, the son of Bishri, a Benjamite, and he is going to put together a rebellion just like Absalom. And he says, we've got no share in David. We don't like him. We don't want to work for him. We don't have an inheritance of the son of Jesse. That's David. So listen, every man of Israel started to desert David and followed Sheba. But the men of Judah, the loyal men of Judah, remained loyal to their king. And David came to his house at Jerusalem. This is kind of a sad story right here. Remember, he left 10 of his concubines to take care of his house when he fled. Well, Absalom got the advice from Ahithophel to go have sex with these 10 concubines on the roof of David's house so everyone could see it, and it would just make it seem like this is his property. So the king took the 10 women, his concubines who he had left to keep the house, and he shuts them up. He puts them in seclusion, supported them, but did not pay any attention to them, didn't have any personal contact or slept with them or anything like that, because they were defiled by Absalom. See, a concubine was like a wife. They just weren't the official first one. And so they were kind of a secondary wife, but they were supposed to be very loyal and true to whoever they belonged to. So he felt they were defiled. He puts them up. Sad story. Then the king said to Amasa, assemble the men of Judah for me within 3 days. I'm going to give you 3 days to get this together, and I'm going to introduce you as the new commander of the army instead of Joab. So Amasa went to assemble the men of Judah, but he was late. Some people are just chronically late, longer than the time which David had appointed him. So David said to Abishai, this is another one of his nephews. He said, we're going to be in trouble here now because he's late. Sheba will do us more harm than Absalom. He's going to have a stronger rebellion. Take your Lord's servants and pursue him. You go after him. Don't wait for Amasa, lest he gets himself into some fortified cities and escape us. So Joab's men, all the mighty men, went out after him, and they went out of Jerusalem to pursue Sheba. And when they were at the large stone, which is in Gibeon, Amasa finally shows up. And he's thinking, better late than never, I'm here. Now Joab's all dressed in battle armor, ready to go to war. And he had a belt with a sword fastened in his sheath. And he was going forward, and he took it out. So he's got it in his left hand, this little dagger. Does this sound familiar? He did this to Abner too. And Joab said to Amasa, hey, how are you doing? Good to see you, my brother. And so Joab took Amasa by the beard with his right hand to kiss him, the old mafia kiss of death, and he struck him in the stomach with the big little knife that he had in his left hand, because Amasa did not notice that sword was in Joab's hand. So Joab kills his competition. He strikes him in the stomach, and his entrails poured out on the ground. He did it in one fell swoop, and thus he died. So Joab and Abishai, his brother, pursued Sheba. Meanwhile, one of Joab's men, standing near Amasa, said, hey, whoever favors Joab, we're going to find out right now. We're going to burn the ships. You're coming with us. You're going to have to make a decision who you'll follow this day. Whoever favors Joab and whoever is for David, Joab's in charge. But here's Amasa in a pool of blood in the middle of the highway. And when the men saw this, they stood still. It was like, rubbernecking. Holy crow, this guy's been killed here. And so Joab pulls him out into a field, throws a garment over him. He is tough, this guy, Joab. And when he saw that everyone who came upon him halted, so he cleared the road of the wreckage and was removed from the highway, and all the people went on after Joab to pursue Sheba. And he went through all the tribes of Israel to Abel, Maacah, the Berites, and they are starting to gather some pretty good troops to go after Sheba. And when they came and besieged him in Abel of Beth-Maacah, they cast a siege around the city. These sieges were very effective back then because they could cut off their water supply, food supply, and they would actually build ramps. That's how Jerusalem was taken by the Romans. And all the people who were with Joab battered the wall to throw it down. Now here comes the brains of the operation. A wise woman comes out and says, hey, please let me speak to you, my Lord. come nearby that I can speak to you? Let me make some sense here. When he had come near her, the woman said, Are you Joab? He said, I am. And she said, Hear the words of your maidservant. A very wise woman. And Joab says, I'm listening. I'm listening. She's a wise lady like we'll study in the future, Esther. Esther saved her people at Purim. And then the last page. And so she spoke, saying, we used to be pretty friendly. They'll surely seek guidance and able so they would end disputes. We're not trying to kill everybody. We settle things like adults. And I am among the peaceable and faithful. I supported David. I didn't want any rebellions. But you seek to destroy a city and me, a mother in Israel. Why would you swallow up the inheritance of the Lord? Hey, I am a Jew and I love God. And Joab answered and said, far be it from me that I should swallow up or destroy this city. That is not so. But a man from the mountains of Ephraim, a guy that we are after named Sheba, the son of Bishri by name, has raised his hand against the king, against David. Deliver him only. You bring him out, and we won't destroy your city. And I'll withdraw and deliver him, and I'll depart. We'll go home, everybody be happy, but I got to get this guy. And so this woman goes, she's pretty tough too. She says, you watch. His head's going to be thrown over the wall to you to take home with you as a parting gift. Then the woman in her wisdom went to all the people. She must have been well known and convinced these people, look, we either cut this guy's head off and throw it over the wall, or we're all going to be killed. It's a pretty easy choice here. And so they cut off the head of Sheba, the son of Bishri, and threw it over the wall out to Joab. So he's got a nice trophy to take home. And Joab returned to the king at Jerusalem. And then David's government offices. He's very organized. For a shepherd boy, this guy had godly intelligence and wisdom. He puts Joab back in charge of the army. Look, I made a mistake. Nephew, you're back in charge. And Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, was over the Cherethites and the Pelethites. Adoram was in charge of the money, in charge of the revenue. He's at the bank. And jumping Jehoshaphat, the son of Ahilud, he was the recorder. He took down everything that we have today. These people kept meticulous records of what's happening. And Sheba was a scribe, so they had multiple people keeping track of things. Zadok and Abiathar remained the high priests. And Ira, the Jerite, was chief minister under David. A great organization is formed here. 2 rebellions put down. God still has anointed David to be king of a united Israel. And it's going to happen. So what we learned today, Joab is a strong fighter and a conscience for David. We all need accountability partners in our lives to stay on the straight and narrow path to please God. The loyalty of Barzillai and Mephibosheth are beautiful portraits of how believers should act towards those leaders that are godly, loyal, Remember, Gary Kinder would always go through what names mean, and Gary means loyal. Loyal. I'm not going to tell you again what mine means. And the wisdom of godly women, all through the Bible, is that evidence that the Lord wants us to listen to their advice. Amazingly, sometimes you'll get the very best advice from your spouse or a close friend that's a female, because they have a different perspective than short-tempered men like Tolbert back here. So, we'll open it up for any comments or questions. Linda.
I just would like for you to refresh my history.
I hope I can.
Saul was the first king, and he was king of both northern and southern, and they were called northern and southern kingdom then, even though, or was it based on the territory, the 10 and the 2 tribes?
10 and 2.
Okay, so he was in control of all. Then when David took over, he was the king of Judah. For 7 years.
Correct.
And this is when the split happened again, to where there was a northern kingdom and a southern, and the northern kingdom did not want to follow David.
It happens, actually, it happens several times,
Okay,
not
so
just
there's a
once.
split, the 7 years, then he asked him to come back and join him. David becomes the king, Solomon becomes the king, and then they split again.
Yes.
So, okay. I just couldn't
Yeah.
understand what the difference is.
David unites them. Solomon really expands the kingdom,
Okay.
the United Kingdom. But then he gets, he had 700 wives and 300 porcupines. So that's why you have to study the Bible line by line to get the clear picture of what God's trying to tell us. That a divided nation, Abraham Lincoln said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And America, unfortunately, is unusually divided right now. And it's not a north-south division like the Civil War, it's left and right. Claudia.
But there were only two tribes of Judah, and then 10 for Israel, right?
Well, there was actually Judah and Benjamin.
Uh-huh.
There were actually 13 sons, tribes, but Levi was the spiritual priestly line that did not get an inheritance of the land.
Right.
They were to be taken care of by the other 12 tribes.
But the Judah group really was victorious over the larger group.
They were big. Judah was a big tribe. And when Jacob gave his prophecies for his sons, he prophesied that Judah would be the kingly tribe, the leadership tribe, and the scepter would not pass from Judah, which means they would be the top tribe until Messiah comes.
Yes. But you were saying that the people from Judah were eloquent speakers, or
Yeah. They might have just been louder. I don't know.
But they were very organized, and they were the ones who really led the group. All of the people from Israel, those 10 tribes, succumbed to the two.
They were as powerful as all 10 put together on the other side. True. Debbie's got something.
Just to add to what you said.
Yes, so Benjamin and Judah were in the northern
Southern.
Southern. And the northern was like God had told the people of Israel to never make deals with the unbelievers, the pagans, and Judah and Benjamin followed that, and they never made an alliance with wicked people, but the other 10 they did, and they even made a temple. What is the name of the mountain that they used to? No, it's not. So anyway, there's a temple in Jerusalem, and the people the south, Judah and Benjamin, they are following the Lord's.
Yeah, the northern kingdom started
The Lord.
started combining God worship plus Baal worship,
Correct. Yeah.
and they were intermingling, and Judah tried to stay pure.
And that's that's why there was such a deal going in between the Samaritans with the Jewish people. So that's
Yeah, the history is, and it's so well documented too.
yes.
I mean, I get up early, I watched Jerusalem Dateline, and then they have a program that's all the news from Israel, and they just keep finding things, you know, like graffiti on David's tomb from one of the Crusader Knights that had carved his name into David's tomb, that had visited there. It's fascinating. I love history. Well, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for your word, because your word opens the door to history, to our relationship with Jesus, to our relationship with each other. And Father, I praise you for how you've been a loving and kind God, even when we fail. And I pray for every person in this room. Pray you'd bless them, bless their health. Hear those prayer requests, Lord Jesus, and we pray that we can be better disciples, better servants, better friends, husbands, and children as well. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. We'll see you next week. Don't forget to change your clocks.